So it's been a year and 9 months since For Honor has officially released, and I don't think I've ever seen the community as a whole so upset. Countless comments, Reddit posts, videos from other YouTubers, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of pushback in the community right now, and I mean, I can't blame anyone for being upset with the game. I wanted to make this video to address things you guys have told me because you guys pretty much know how I feel about the game by now. The first thing I want to talk about are all the people telling me that they've just flat out uninstalled the game and that they're just done with it. For some it's boredom, for others it's burnout, but a lot of what I've been seeing is that people are leaving because of the Wulin heroes. Now, we all know what the Wulin are capable of. It's to the point where sometimes I wonder if Season 8 would have been better received without the Wulin heroes. And it seems like these heroes have just sucked the fun out of the game for a lot of players, especially those who play on console. And let me say this real fast, they're not that fun to fight against on PC either. They're way more tolerable though. I think Shaolin is the most complained about hero, and then Jang Jun follows him, which does surprise me since JJ doesn't bother me a whole bunch personally. His attacks hit at weird times and his parry timings feel a little different. As for Shaolin, I mean, admittedly on PC he's not too bad to deal with if you know what to look out for. On console he's more tough to deal with, but the playstyle is still the same. Try to shut him down from neutral, don't let him backstep light, and try to keep him out of key stance. I think what people really don't like about Shaolin is that he can teleport and his kick can't really be reacted to, and he has that neutral 400 millisecond top light, which I don't think is all too bad. For some reason, I have a feeling that the Wulin heroes won't be treated like the rest of the DLC heroes. I think that there will always be hate headed their way, whereas with the others, the hate died down after a couple of weeks, except for Shaman and Sin, of course. Those two hate trains went on for a while. Centurion because he was insane for months, and Shaman because she did too much damage for all that she could do. She could do so much more than any other hero at that time, and people didn't like that. But now that Centurion is a shell of his former self and Shaman has been tuned down a bit, there's not much hate for them anymore. The Wulin, on the other hand, are actually pretty balanced in my opinion, and I do think there are still better heroes in this game. I personally don't have much fun using most of the Wulin anymore and went right back to the OG heroes. I had to just stop playing Tiandi because I wasn't enjoying his playstyle anymore. Against people who are really good at blocking and parrying, it was just me trying to figure out how to get to my 400 millisecond lights as often as I could. And even against players who weren't as good in duels or fighting against people in Breach or Dominion, I was using the 400 millisecond lights way more often than I wanted to, and started using it sort of as a crutch almost because it felt like free damage in these game modes, especially since fighting in fours is a lot more toned down for the most part and people play a lot more aggressively. And I just didn't like it. Winning a duel sort of started to feel cheap, if that makes any sense, even though I was using the hero the way he was supposed to be used. And while using Shaolin again, although his moveset is more complex, and I say that loosely, I found myself just trying to get in a key stance all match if my opponent was in my face, and I don't know, it just wasn't too enjoyable for me. Anyways, I think most people will continue to be unhappy with the Wulin. Tiandi because of his 400 millisecond attacks and constant yelling, Shaolin because of his teleport and kick, Nusha because of her back-to-back 400 millisecond lights, and JJ because I'm assuming it's because of his wonky timings and damage values. People who play on console, I think, have the most to say about the game right now, mainly because the majority of people who play this game play on console, so I see a lot more of them commenting, but I hear you guys. I'm still primarily playing on console, and the game still feels really clunky, and as the game gets faster and faster, it gets less fun to play, and honestly, I wish I could put it into words how I feel, because I really believe that the Wulin heroes aren't that bad. I really mean that, but they're just not fun to fight against, and I'm not sure if it's because of Marching Fire, but defense feels like it just doesn't work sometimes. Indicators in team fights are just trash. Parry animations start, but you'll still get smacked. Reflex guard is just a joke. And a lot of you agree with me. Marching Fire has made the game feel worse, and no one really knows why. There's also a lot of backlash against Ubi, and I've sort of been talking about this already, but everywhere I look, I see people bashing Ubi. And I mean, it's nothing new to me. I've been criticizing Ubi for like the past 15 months, but this is as bad as I've seen it since Season 2. It's like there's something every 2 weeks that doesn't sit well with the For Honor community, whether it be a strange nerf like Shigoki's, or saying something that doesn't make any sense like learn how to play Lawbringer, or even something that has good intentions but was executed poorly, like the responsive dialogue system and the new voices, or the perk system. And right now there's that whole thing about Ubi removing the Deus Vult line from the Knights chant, and that Ubi asked for a feedback thread when there's been endless amounts of feedback. And while I admit that a lot of the feedback is really just people being salty because they lost a match or can't handle a certain hero, there are some really good feedback posts and videos out there. It's just that Ubi would actually have to search for it. And when they asked for that feedback, I think that it made it seem like Ubi hasn't been paying attention to what the community says. Now, in a couple days here, actually tomorrow, on Thursday, we'll see if Ubi does listen to any of that feedback. That feedback thread has about 1,000 comments. Again, some being well thought out, while others are as simple as nerf all the Wulin heroes or buff Shigoki, or my absolute favorite by now, separate balancing for console and PC, which we all know will never happen. Also, the way that Ubi goes about responding to the community is just off. They never let us know what they're working on really, and they do an awful job at responding to a lot of complaints, or just take too long to do so. And I'm not saying that everything that everyone says deserves a response, because I mean that would be insane. The community also seems to be against itself. Illustruce talked about this, and so did Migi recently, so I'm not going to talk about it for too long, but I will say things from my perspective about the community. I've noticed this since the game came out. Newer and less skilled players' opinions are literally just shit on half the time by competitive players or players who claim that they're competitive. And I mean, this is to be expected, but rather than taking the time to just explain to a new player why they're wrong, they just get gunned down by a get good. I honestly can't stand it, and I think it's the most annoying thing in the entire community. All this negativity towards Ubisoft is sitting on top of what I think is by far the biggest issue this game faces, and that's Ubi's unbelievably slow pacing. We all know by now it's impossible for Ubi to roll out patches weekly, and I sort of think that rolling out patches bi-weekly wouldn't be that great of an idea. But I know for a fact that we have to move faster, and if we're not going to get more frequent updates, we should at least be getting larger updates or changes that actually matter, or maybe a new feature or something. I've been saying for the longest time that a simple little spectator mode would do wonders for this game. I'm not even talking about a fully fleshed out spectator mode with multiple angles or anything. I just want to be able to view all the players in a match. It's to the point where even allowing a player to spectate everyone in a match rather than just his teammates will be a great improvement in my eyes, for custom match only, of course. I think even the addition of an external guard break icon will make a lot of people happy as well, even though it's just something minor. The way that Ubi is handling the game is why people are so unhappy right now. I asked you guys the other day if you're still having fun with the game, and the majority of you said, yeah, you're still having fun, but only for a few matches. And that's the same boat I'm in right now. You can only put up with BS for so long, you know, and I don't think people would be so angry if something was happening. It is insane how Conqueror has basically been universally regarded as one of the strongest heroes in the game, not because of his insane kit and complex moveset and high damage, because that doesn't exist, is because of his busted shield bash and ultra safe defense. I have no idea how Warden's shoulder bash is still the way it is. It confirms damage whether it's charged or not, has hyper armor, and is feightable even after he starts running. I'd honestly be happy if they just removed the hyper armor. I'm sure that even if they didn't speed up the updates, that larger, more meaningful patches would do well for the game. And when I say that, I'm not saying that Ubi isn't doing anything. It really does feel like it's really important for them to keep the game running and make sure that everyone can play it. Whenever there's something that prevents a player from actually playing the game, they're right on top of it. And I mean, they still are making new content, but in my opinion, you gotta fix what's here first. One more thing I want to say that people don't really talk about is that Burnout is real. I know that there are people who play for thousands of hours, and let me say, If a video game can keep you occupied and interested for more than 1,000 hours, then you definitely got your money's worth. I know that a lot of you guys that watch this channel are relatively new, and by new I mean not having more than 30 or so reps. And since For Honor doesn't really switch anything up and hardly makes the game feel new, then people are just going to get bored and just not want to play anymore, and that's okay. It's happened to me a few times. My advice is, just take a month off, and by the time you come back, there will be a brand new bug fix patch for you to download. Anyways, that's all I got for this video. I sort of just wanted to talk about For Honor for a bit and respond to some feedback. I do want to hear you guys' opinions though, so talk to me down in the comments. How are you feeling about For Honor right now? Are you still playing regularly, or are you just done with it for now? And as always, if you like the video, feel free to leave a like, Sylvia, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.